Hello everyone, confirm that you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Say that again.
Loud and clear, we
you.
can hear you.
All right. Good evening, everyone.
You loud and clear. I
Good
said
evening
we
if you are in Nigeria, and good afternoon if you're in Texas, USA. My name is Joy Alumona, and I am your moderator for this session, where we will learn from Mr. Terry Palish, the 2024 SP International President, on how to navigate challenges in the oil and gas industry. I'm certain that by the end of this event, you would have learned pro tips and important lessons on how to navigate and overcome challenges in the oil and gas industry. For the safety brief, we strongly advise that you do not walk or drive during the course of this session. Instead, please find a quiet place to sit with your pen and your notepad to take down important points. Please keep your mic muted unless you are called on to speak, ask questions, or make contributions. If you have any questions or contributions before the Q&A session, kindly use the chat box. During the course of this event, we advise that you stay vigilant and aware of your surroundings. Thank you. Um, Moving on to the first item on our agenda, can we have Mr. Dipo Ashafa, the Lagos section chairperson, give the opening remark? Mr. Dipo, are you on this call?
All right, I think Mr. Dipo is yet to join. He will be joining us shortly. So I think move to Mr. Steven.
All right, Mr. Steven, can we have you please to give us the charge?
All right, confirm you can hear me.
Yes.
All right, good evening from Nigeria. I think good afternoon for those dialing in the US. Thank you very much, Mr. Terry, for finding time to join us in this session. My name is Stephen Obo, and I serve as the SP Lagos Section Student Affairs Chair. And we've been working this together with the team. OVA has been in touch with you, Mr. Terry, to making sure that we are able to achieve this today. I work for Exxon as a wells engineer, and we looking forward to having a great conversation and also to get a lot of learning from the uh, uh, years of and wealth of experience you have in terms of the leadership sharings that you're going to be providing to us. We are eager to learn and also take some learnings from this. The charge for the students is to try as much as you can to keep an open mind, keep a mind of wanting to learn, ask questions, and see this opportunity which SP is bringing to you to help to develop your career. And this is actually a very vital time that which is what SP is actually giving you. I'll call it freely. So let's take up advantage of the opportunity that's been presented to us to gain a lot of insight and be able to make a good judgment from the various teachings and learning that we're going to be gleaning from the wealth of experience of Mr. Terry. Thank you very much, and looking forward to having a great discussion. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, Mr. Steven. On this call, we have Mr. Dipo Ashafa, the Lagos Section Chairperson. We have Mr. Stephen Obo, the Student Affairs Chairperson. We had him a few seconds ago. We have Mr. Chimeze, the YP Chairperson, Lagos Section. And then, of course, we have Mr. Terry Palish, the 2024 SP International President on this call. We're going to have more board members joining in during the course of this session, and as they join in, I will introduce them. Mr. Terry Palish is the Vice President of Technology and Engineering at Cabo Ceramics, and in 2024 is the National President of the SPE. After completing his BSc program in Petroleum Engineering at the University of Missouri-Rolla, Palish worked as a senior petroleum engineer with ARCO in Alaska and as a petroleum advisor with ARCO in Algeria. In 2024, he joined Cabo Ceramics and in his current position leads a team of technologists dedicated to developing and championing new products and services, as well as advising clients on completion and fracture optimization. Terry is an active member of SPE, including past chairman of the SPE Dallas section and the 8CCE technical program. He recently completed a term as the completions technical director on the SPE board and has rejoined the board as the 2024 SPE president. Palish has authored or co-authored over 50 SPE papers and been awarded the SPE Mid-Con Regions Completion and Regions Completion Optimization and Technology Award, as well as the Regional Service Award. In 2018, Terry was recognized as a distinguished member of SPE and has received the award for distinguished service. In 2019, he was selected as a distinguished alumni of Missouri S&T. Terry and his wife, Sandy, have been married for over 35 years and have 3 grown sons. Zach, the first son, is an Air Force pilot. Austin is a lead petroleum engineer at Liberty Energy. And Jacob, who is a professional basketball player in the Chicago White Sox organization. The joy of any parent is seeing their children succeed. So congratulations, Mr. Terry, and congratulations to your wife, Mrs. Sandy, for raising 3 boys who make you proud every day. Now, if your hands are not too heavy, please drop some clap emojis for Mr. Terry in the comment section. Mr. Terry, can you hear me?
Thank you very much for that introduction.
Okay, let's have you, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you for giving us some of your time. We know you're a very busy man. Thank you so much. We can't wait to learn from your wealth of knowledge.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Let's see if we can't get this working. Can you tell me if you're seeing my screen okay? Somebody give me, tell me yes.
I can see your screen.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much, Joy. Well, first of all, thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Joy. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you, Obi, for the communications. You know, I know I've said this before, and if you were at NACE, you heard me say this before. One of the most fun things I get to do as SPE president is talk to students and sections. So I wish I'd be with you in person. I enjoyed my time in Lagos at NICE, but I'm happy that I can actually talk to you here tonight. Ironically, I'm actually not in Dallas, Texas. I'm actually in Abu Dhabi. So I'm still not in your time zone, but I'm on the other side. So anyways, I'm going to talk about, I was asked to speak to you today about kind of just some of the things I've learned over the course of my career. We'll talk about professional development. I'll talk with you about some of my challenges and maybe how I overcame them. I have a fair amount of material, but what I want to do is at the end, I certainly want to leave you as much time as possible for answering any questions you might have. So again, thank you very much. So Joy, you gave a nice little introduction to my family, so I'll just show you the pictures of those same people that I just told you, that you just told me about. So my wife and I, Sandy, again, we're both engineers. I'm a petroleum engineer. My wife, Sandy, is an electrical engineer. So we have three very technical sons. As you said before on the introduction, Zach, he's an industrial engineer, actually, graduated from university with that degree. And as you said, he's a pilot in the Air Force. Austin is my petroleum engineer. He is now a staff engineer for Liberty Energy, and he and his wife, Allie, live in Dallas near us. And then my youngest son, as you said, is a baseball player, but he has a computer science degree from Stanford and Texas A&M. So all very technical boys. And as you said, I am very proud of them, and my wife and I are very proud. So we're not going to talk about energy literacy today, but normally I like to talk, I have a few slides on this. I'm not going to go through them all. Here's what I'd like, though, to convey to you, because I think it's important if we want to talk about our energy future and how to overcome the challenges of the oil and gas industry, I think we need to understand just some things about energy. First thing is that energy is very critical to life. All life depends on it. We ingest chemical energy every day when we eat our food. Energy demand has been growing dramatically for the last 80 years, and it's going to continue to grow as population increases, as we continue to meet the world's needs, as developing countries develop, continents develop. In addition, oil and gas is going to be needed for many decades, okay? Well, all energies are going to be important. We need options depending on where you live. And in the end, humanity needs affordable, reliable, and sustainable energy. They need energy that's all three of those. And in order to do that, it's going to take engineers of all kinds, including petroleum engineers and scientists in our industry. It's important that we understand just in how important energy is and what we do. So I just want to say congratulations to all of you for joining our industry and taking an interest in our industry. Our industry has made a difference, and it's going to continue to make a difference. As I said before, the world needs energy that is accessible, affordable, reliable, secure, and green and decarbonized. And I think the world calls this an energy trilemma. I think this is our opportunity. It's our opportunity to show the world that we know how to improve recovery and get increased production, but we also know how to decarbonize our operations and reduce our carbon footprint. We know we have the expertise to advance carbon capture and storage and geothermal and hydrogen, and everything goes with it. So be proud of what you do, because our industry and you in particular are going to help us get there. So that's how important our industry is. So the question then becomes, as students and young professionals, how do you thrive in this? And this is why I have my theme, creating our energy future. And what I like to tell students and young professionals is, in order to create your energy future, you're going to need to do four things. First, you're going to need to stay current in your field. So technology is always changing, so you need to engage in what we call lifelong learning. Second, you have to be able to collaborate with your peers and your colleagues, because we will solve many more problems together than we will separately. The third thing is, you're going to need to be able to adapt to your changing needs, your changing surroundings, changing technologies. We're actually going to talk about a little bit of that later when we talk about adapting and preparing yourself for change. And then you also need to be able to network outside of our industry. So people that are important to our industry, but that aren't necessarily in our industry. And to do this, I kind of wrap this all up into one thing, and that's what I call professional development. You have to take a professional development is up to you. And you need to take that on and decide, how are you going to develop yourself professionally? So that's what we're going to talk about over the next several minutes here. So before I get into that and talk about professional development, I want to take you through my SPE journey. Joy explained to you my CV journey, but let me tell you my SP journey. So from an SP member, I joined in university just like you. Unfortunately, I didn't do much while I was in university when it came to being an SP member. I was involved in some other organizations, but I was a member. I was a member while I was with ARCO in Alaska. I wrote a paper, I went to a conference, but I would say I was kind of just a member, an inactive member. Then when I went to Carbo, I realized I needed to network and meet people. I I realized I needed to disseminate technical information, write papers. So that's when I started getting, and I became an active member. And through my active membership, I started volunteering. I got on the ATC program committee, the awards committee. I did some work with the Dallas section. And I started meeting people and networking. And it was amazing how great that was for me, which then led to my leadership. So my third phase, which was kind of what I'm in now, my leadership phase. So I was asked to lead the ATC program committee. I was asked to lead the Dallas section. And of course, eventually I was asked to lead the SPE. And all of these things really are wrapped up in how I've gotten my technical development, what I call soft skills, and professional fulfillment. All three of those are what SPE has given me. And what we're going to talk about today or this evening is take a little bit more of a hard look at soft skills. Okay, soft skills. And so I want to first of all talk to you about my challenges. So I sat down, I was asked, what are some of the challenges that you've had and you had to overcome? And I've already kind of talked about one of them, and that was when I was a student in university, I wasn't very active. Now, having said that, I want to be careful and make sure you understand I wasn't lazy. I was a part of another organization, my fraternity. And in that organization, I learned how to lead. I learned how I was the vice president there. I was a treasurer. I was a recruiting coordinator. So all the kind of things you can get out of SPE, I was getting in another place. So while that was a challenge, and I wish I would have been more involved in SPE, what's important is that I was getting involved in leadership and development of myself professionally. I want to tell you another story. So when I went to work for ARCO, my first job out of college, one of my first supervisors I had, she told me, you have terrible writing skills and you don't have very good speaking skills. And I thought, well, I'm an engineer. That's why I want to be an engineer, because I know I'm not good at those things. And I didn't realize at the time, you need to have those skills as well. And those are what we call soft skills. So as I worked my way through SPE and Carbo, I wrote papers. I actually taught high school for a little while. I've made many presentations. And of course, a lot of this I got out of SPE. So I didn't realize how important it was until I became an active member. I wish I'd kind of gotten some of those skills earlier. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. Another thing I want to tell you about that was is a kind of a challenge for me. We're going to talk about this later, is work-life balance. As I showed you before, I mean, we have a family, 3 boys. We were very active boys. And, for me personally, I always felt like it was important to have, put family first. And sometimes I had to make work decisions that reflected that. I had to watch colleagues, who maybe moved up the supervisory or management pole faster than I did, but I was okay with that. I was okay with that decision. I'm not saying it was good or bad, but I was okay with it. And then the last thing that it was a challenge for me is that I would have never really considered myself a person. I like kind of the self-help books. And the last 4 years as the vice president at Carbo Ceramics, we've been fortunate that our company has provided us with leadership coach, the executive team. And one of the things that I've learned from this leadership coach is that there are some really good books on leadership and teamwork and things like that. And so I've been reading some of those books, and I am a believer in particularly those types of self-help books. I've learned a lot about how to build a team. I've learned a lot about how to be a leader. And so I encourage you to maybe look into that as well. So I've had many more challenges, of course, in my career and in my life, but these are just kind of the 4 that kind of stuck out to me when I thought about this. So let's kind of dive into the talk here. When we talk about professional development, and we sometimes think of it as soft skills, for me personally, I consider there to be 5 parts of soft skills. The first one is writing, the second is presenting, and the third is speaking. Now, presenting and speaking, you might argue, are very similar, and they certainly go together. And then networking, and eventually leading. And all of these are extremely important to your professional development. And all of these are things that you're not going to likely get out of a university book or directly from something at your employer. It's something that you're going to have to take on and you're going to have to develop yourself. So let's talk about each one of these, and I'm going to give you just my pointers and my suggestions on each one of these skills. So first of all, technical writing. There's two parts of things that I consider that are important in your day-to-day job is technical writing. One is the obvious. It's when you write a report. You're writing a technical report at work or maybe at university, and the reason you're writing that report is because you're trying to convey your ideas, your thoughts, whatnot to other people at your company or maybe outside your company. You're also doing it so that you can preserve your work for the future, so somebody can go back and reference it. But the one I want to also make sure you think about is email. So none of you on the call probably know this, but there's a time when years ago, we used to have what we called memos. And memos were pieces of paper that we wrote a note on, we typed it up, we made photocopies of it, we copied certain people, and we actually literally mailed them around the office. Today, we call that email. And the reason I want to tell you about this is when you wrote a memo, an official piece of paper, you spent a lot of time making sure, you had it written correctly and everything else. You need to treat your email the same way. And one thing about email that you have to be really careful of is email does not contain emotion. Emotion is in the eye of the reader. So when you send an email, you may be thinking one thing emotionally and your reader reads it and they're thinking something else. So be very careful with that, the way you write it. And the last thing I want you to keep in mind is that email or that letter or technical report may be the first time somebody meets you is via that medium. So remember that. So make sure it's a good one. Here are just, this isn't a technical writing course. There's plenty of ways that you can get that. But here are just some quick things that I want you to think about when it comes to writing. If you're writing a technical report, obviously make sure you organize your thoughts, use simple sentences and common terms. Obviously, you want to present a technically sound story and demonstrate that you've researched it, that you've gone back. You should have citations. You should have some background. Most importantly is to proofread it. Read it over, get someone else to read it over for you. Make sure it reads the way it should. By the same token, I want you to think about the following things about email or even any notes. Even in your emails, make sure you reread it and you eliminate spelling and grammatical errors. So again, proofread your emails the same way you do a technical report. If you need to, ask a friend or a colleague to read the report or read the email if you're not sure if it's reading correctly. Remember, you don't know what the emotion is going to be taken. And the last thing I just want to caution you, and this is just one of the things I've made this mistake. I speak from experience. Sometimes you get upset and you've got this email and you're like, I'm going to send them an email about this thing. And you say some things you wish you hadn't. If you get to the point where you're sending an email like that, I highly encourage you to set it aside, go home, go to sleep, come back the next morning, reread that email. And if you still think it's the right thing to send it. But more than likely, you're going to read it and say, yeah, I probably shouldn't send that, or maybe I should temper what I've said in there. So just, again, some successful tips for you. So that's technical writing. Let's talk about presentation. And the reason I broke out presentation from speaking is because I'm talking about really the PowerPoint side of the presentation. So when you develop a PowerPoint, think about the fact that that PowerPoint is really there to complement what you're trying to say. It's not meant to have every word that you're saying. It's just meant to help you complement and help your listeners or viewers. Keep in mind that some people, of you, the 85 people on this call, some of you are visual learners and some of you are auditory learners. You're doing both, but some of you are doing more reading and some of you doing more listening. So the reason you have a PowerPoint is to kind of help do both. Obviously, many times we have a PowerPoint because we want to go ahead and show people a data or a graph or a table. Just think about what it is you're trying to convey with that table. I like to say to avoid death by PowerPoint. And what do I mean by death by PowerPoint? All I mean is you don't have to have a slide for every little thing you're going to say. You don't have to have a slide for every chart and every well that you're working on. If you have to, create some backup slides. Lastly, know your audience. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit more about that in speaking, but build your PowerPoint that's going to complement what you're saying by the audience you're talking to. Ovi can tell you, I asked her who my audience was going to be because I wanted to understand if I was speaking and creating the right work. When you're creating your slides, look, again, there's a lot of people out there that have a lot of things to say about slides. Most of this is understood. But again, those slides are helping you tell a story. Make sure that they're easy to read. Try not to use backgrounds that have a lot of different colors. Either use a dark background with white or a white background with dark. Notice I had those backwards on the screen here. But use one or the other because it'll make it a lot easier to read. Obviously, use simple headers, minimal text. Please avoid writing paragraphs and sentences on your PowerPoint. Use them as bullets. They're going to jog your memory. You should know what to say if you practice. The other thing is, if you're going to show a chart on your PowerPoint, make sure it fills the screen. Okay, don't show a chart with just in one corner of the screen like you see on my screen, where you can't read what you're trying to show people. So use the whole screen. And the last thing is just a little bit of a pet peeve of mine. Look, PowerPoint is an extremely powerful tool. It's got tons of animation options in it, but you don't have to use every one in your PowerPoint. Use the ones that make sense and help you convey what you're trying to do. All right, so that's presentation. Let's talk about speaking. So now we've had a PowerPoint, but now we need to convey it and speak it. By the way, you can see kind of like some before and after. I have my nice pictures, and that's actually a presentation I was giving back in 2008 in China. I've learned a lot since then, let me just tell you. So speaking, the most critical thing to help you be a good speaker is to prepare. First thing I highly recommend you do is to ask the people who have asked you to speak, ask them some very important questions. Obviously, what is the topic you want me to speak on? Okay, make sure you understand that so that you meet that. Second question, can I use a PowerPoint or is this just a speech? If it's a PowerPoint, then do your very best not to read your slides and do everything we just talked about with the PowerPoint. If it's just a speech, then, well, if you're a really good speaker, which I'm not, you can probably get through it without a script. It is perfectly acceptable to read a keynote speech, okay? Particularly something that's over 10 minutes long. Nobody is expected to remember that exactly. So feel free to use a script and then you go that route. Ask the organizer, how much time do you have? Okay, that's important. You don't want to go over, you don't want to go under. Also ask them if there's going to be a chance for Q&A. If there is a chance for Q&A and you're using slides, you may want to put some slides in the back for some things you might think they would ask questions about. The most important thing, if you take nothing else away from this talk today, when it comes to speaking, you have to practice. And I want to make sure we understand what practice means. Practice is not sitting in front of your computer, advancing slides, and saying, this is what I'm going to say on this slide. This is what I'm going to say on this slide. No, practice is actually literally standing up in front of your computer and giving that presentation from start to finish without stopping. There's two things that'll happen with that. First, you'll understand your transitions. You'll understand where things don't quite make sense. And I guarantee you will make modifications to your slides by doing so. But the second, and one of the most important things, is you'll know how long it goes. There's no way to know how long your PowerPoint presentation goes unless you practice it. The same thing goes for keynote speeches, by the way, if you're reading a script. The more you practice that, the more you read it, the more you'll be able to look up at the audience and look down at your script and give yourself some eye contact because you'll know what's coming in your script. There is no substitute to becoming a better speaker than going out and speaking to people. I mean, that's the only way you get comfortable. I can tell you right now, I'm still nervous in some situations, but the only way you're going to overcome that nervousness is to get out and do it. So I encourage you to take every opportunity to do that. Okay, so we've talked about technical writing. We talked about presentations and speaking. Let's talk about the fourth one, and that is networking. So first question you kind of gotta, people always ask themselves is, well, why do I need to network? Maybe I like to work alone and what have you. Look, when you network, that's how you learn things. That's how you exchange knowledge. By networking, you exchange what you understand, they exchange what they understand, and you get some technical input. Second thing is, it helps you work together as a team. As I mentioned earlier, there is no substitution for collaboration. We solve many more problems working together than apart. The third benefit of networking, and this is the one that most people think of when they think of networking, is future jobs. Whether that's networking at your company, and maybe it's a future job that maybe you want to transfer into another a department, or it's networking at your local SPE section or local colleague, local other companies, where you might want to move to another job someday, or it's networking globally across the globe to learn from technical. There's all kinds of options for networking, and all of them are equally important. I want you to think about something when you're networking, and think of it as every time you meet somebody new, you're going to leave a mark on them. And they're going to either think highly of you, they're going to think low of you, or they're not going to think one way or the other about you. I encourage you to try to make a good mark. And above all else, don't ever burn a bridge. And what that means is, regardless of what you think about your supervisor or a colleague or a friend or somebody, don't ever burn that bridge. I can tell you I've had supervisors that I haven't particularly cared for, but I still stay in contact with them. They still provide networking opportunities for me, even though I may never want to go work for them ever again. Always, always make sure you leave people with a good impression of yourself. It makes all the difference in the world. And the last thing I want to say about networking is, it is much harder to get rid of a bad reputation than it is to lose a good one. I want you to think about that. Everybody starts with a good reputation. It's super easy to lose that reputation if you betray trust or something. And once you lose a reputation, it's really hard to gain it back. So do your best not to lose it. All right, the last thing I want to talk about is leadership skills. If you do all of the things I just talked about, particularly volunteering as well, then somebody's going to ask you to start leading some things. And you might say, I don't know if I'm qualified to lead. Well, start simple. You know, maybe just work on a subcommittee of maybe your student section, or when you get out in your or chapter, and when you get out in your section, maybe a subcommittee, and then maybe get on a committee. Maybe at some point in time, you might lead that committee. Maybe get on your board and then eventually become a leader. These are just things you progress over time as you develop yourself professionally. The leadership will come. I can assure you the leadership will come, because the more you learn, the more it'll adapt. And by the way, try reading some of those books like I was telling you about. I also want to tell you, right now we're talking about SPE, your SP chapter, maybe your SP section. Those are volunteer organizations. That means people don't have to be there. It's more difficult to leave a volunteer organization than lead a work organization. And the reason is because at work, they have to be there. If you're a supervisor, look, they report to you. You can be a bad leader and sometimes get away with it, and you just have a bad leader. But if you're a bad leader in a volunteer organization, people just are going to leave. So all I'm trying to tell you is, by learning to lead at SPE or a volunteer organization gives you a lot of really good experience. The last thing I want to tell you, is almost every leadership position I've had at SPE is because somebody asked me to lead, and I said yes. And I'm going to tell you, sometimes I contemplated not saying yes, including being SPE president, because I wasn't sure I was cut out to do it. What I'm going to tell you is, if people think you can lead, you more than likely can. And that's how you learn, and that's how you get better. And I've learned a tremendous amount as I've gone through my last 2 years as SPE president. So if you get the opportunity, try to say yes. All right, so I'm going to take a quick pause here, and I want to talk to you a little bit about SPE and how I think SPE can help exactly with those things we were talking about. Our mission, SPE's mission, is to connect our members, and it's really to connect our members to technology, to each other, and to our external stakeholders. And the whole idea is if you think about the things I said we need to do to create our energy future, it's all embedded in the SPE mission of connecting. I'm not going to go through all these. As I think most of you know, SPE has a lot of opportunities for connecting to our global membership, our events. We have our written papers, our multimedia. We have our online blogs post, and of course, you have your local sections and chapters. These are all the ways SPE gives you opportunities for professional development and connection. I want to just alert you, I was so passionate about this, helping people understand how to make the most out of their SPE membership and help themselves professionally. I basically composed a monthly podcast in the last 12 months where we talked about SPE programming, and we talked about how, not just what they were, but we talked about how to use it for your professional development. So if you like to listen to podcasts, I encourage you to pick one or two to see if it interests you. So again, I just want to draw that to your attention to help you professionally. So let me just kind of wind up with a few other things here for you. I've covered really the main parts of professional development. Now I just want to cover a few other career development ideas and some things to think about before we get to the questions. First of all, I would encourage, what is a mentor? Mentoring is very important. I think as people in society and in the world, we all need examples to look up to. We all need people who can help give us guidance, people who have more experience than us. And mentors are important because sometimes it's really hard to ask for help. Particularly for guys, we just don't like to ask for help. And so if you have a mentor, you kind of have the opportunity in a low-risk situation to ask for help. And mentoring is extremely important for younger adults. So as students and as young professionals, having a mentor is very important. So I want to say two things about mentorship. First of all, I want to encourage you, if you don't have a mentor, get one. So if you have a mentor, that means you're a mentee. That's what that means. When you're looking for a mentor, you may have more than one, by the way. But think about as having somebody who you can trust, and trust with two things. Trust with your questions, and they're not going to laugh at you, and they're not going to think you're dumb for asking a question. Trust them with your questions, but also trust that they're going to give you honest feedback. They're not going to always tell you what you want to hear. They're going to tell you what they think is the right answer. It could be a coworker, it could be a colleague, it could be a close friend or a family member. Most of the time again, depends on what you're looking to have a mentorship. If you're talking about family, then it might be a family member or close friend. If it's work, then it might be a colleague or coworker. But listen, the last thing I want to say about this is listen to what they tell you. So having a mentor and asking questions is one thing, but taking their advice is another. And by the way, you may not agree with what they say. And if you don't, I encourage you to ask them and tell them why you don't agree and see what they say, because they may have some insights that you didn't think of. Now, the other thing I think everybody here could be is also a mentor themselves. I don't care what age you are, you have the ability to mentor somebody younger than you, whether it's a student, a younger student. If you're a senior, you could mentor a freshman. If you're a freshman, you could potentially mentor a high school student or maybe a younger sibling. But I encourage you all to look for opportunities to help people with the experiences you have. And just like I want to tell you as a mentor, a mentee, to listen to people's advice, as a mentor, be patient. Be patient. Remember, they're trying to learn from you, and give them your help. And so I think there's an opportunity for us all to be both mentors and mentees, and we all get the opportunity to do this regardless of our age. There is this program called e-mentoring. So whether you want to have a mentor or you want to mentor people, if you're not aware of this, I encourage you to go on the SPE website. You can either request a mentor or be a mentor. You can request to have as many mentors and mentees as you want, as you have time for. But this is an opportunity for you to get help if you're wondering where can I get some help. All right, the next thing is an open and adaptable. I mentioned this in some of my opening comments about how you have to be able to have an energy future to be able to adapt. Why do I say that? Look, I would love to tell you that in your career and in your life, you're always going to have a great supervisor. You're always going to work in a great location. You're going to have a great job. Your company's never going to get bought. You're never going to change positions. But unfortunately, those things probably going to happen, at least one. And so you need to be open and adaptable. Maybe you need to take on a role that's in a location you don't want to start with, but it'll help you in the future, or a job or position, or maybe you need to work for a supervisor. But anyway, again, going back to what I'd said before, be open, be ready to adapt, and never burn a bridge, okay? But a part of this being adaptable part is helping yourself develop professionally. So the more you develop, the more you can adapt. So you get a supervisor that you don't like. Okay, I have a network. I'm going to go look for another job within my network. Same thing goes with a company or things like that. So that's what I mean by being able to adapt. Work-life balance. Look, everybody is different. No, there is no right or wrong answer here. We are not alike on work-life balance. But what I want to tell you is you need to find what works for you, and you need to respect what other people's decisions are. We all are going to make sacrifices, and those sacrifices come in many forms. But it's okay. Everybody's making sacrifices, and everybody's working at work-life balance. The other thing is your work-life balance may change over the course of your career and of your life as your life changes. So when our kids were born, obviously I chose to be home a lot more than now, for example. I mean, I would have never taken on SP president if my kids were still at home. It just would not have worked for my work-life balance. My wife understands what's going on now. My kids are grown. And I know this may sound funny to you, and you've probably heard this in some fashion, but I'm pretty sure no one ever gets to their later years and says, I sure wish I'd worked more, or I wish I'd spent less time with family and friends. No one ever says that. So just understand that work-life balance is very important, and you need to kind of make that your priority as you see fit. One of the last things I want to talk about is volunteering. So when you talk about volunteering, and this could be for SPE or it could be for anything else, but in the terms of SPE, who benefits when we volunteer? So first of all, obviously our industry, if we're doing volunteers on behalf of our industry, but also the people we're helping benefit. The second is if you're doing it on behalf of SPE, whether it's a local section or chapter or the board, of course, that are international, that helps SPE. And then third, if your company is involved, or if you're getting your company help from somewhere, then your company is improved and is enhanced as well. But most importantly, the person who benefits when volunteering is going to be you and the people you help. And you might ask yourself, how do you benefit by volunteering? Well, here are the things that from a professional development standpoint, you learn as volunteers. You get to learn how to work together on a team for a common cause to accomplish a common mission or a common goal or event. Maybe you get to be the leader of that, and in which case you get to lead a team of volunteers to this common goal. You have to learn how to organize. Believe it or not, even if you're a team member or a team leader, you have to have some organizational skills. You have to learn how to manage your time. You're going to say, well, look, we need to identify the need for this. We need to get a caterer. We need to get these things. And all that stuff will lead to actually some business skills. You'll have to learn about finances. Okay, look, we have to have a budget. We know how much we can spend. Can we do that? And so all these things, you will actually do a pseudo P&L, whether you know it or not. So these are the things that you get professionally. That may not be the reason you volunteer, but I want you to understand you're going to get those benefits. The other thing is, look, no matter who we are, people look up to us. And so this allows you to set an example, particularly to the people that you're helping. So you get to be an example to others. And look, for me personally, the sense of pride and the sense of accomplishment is just amazing. You've helped put together a community outreach program. You get to see it come to fruition, and you get to see the smile on the faces of the kids or the parents or the community members. That is amazingly rewarding and can provide professional fulfillment. So let me close by just saying another plug, one more plug for SPE. I think when it comes to developing yourself professionally, I think SPE has the opportunity, you have the opportunity to use SPE. First of all, the learning side. Okay, we obviously have papers and you can go to conferences and then listen to webinars and training programs. We have the opportunity for you to participate and volunteer in your local section or your chapter. You can write papers, make presentations. You can work on all these professional development soft skills. You have obviously the opportunity to volunteer, not just at the local level, but at the national level. That allows you to network and collaborate across the globe. And as I said before, if you do those things, someone will ask you to lead, and I encourage you to say yes. So all of these things are things you can get from SPE to help yourself professionally. All right. So that is the end of my presentation. I just want to leave you with this thought that, again, the future is bright, and that when it comes to your membership, the more you put into it, the more you're going to get out of it. Okay. We could talk a long time about the gym membership analogy, but I think it's very simple when we think about the fact that we need to think about what we're going to do to develop ourselves professionally and take that on. And a lot of times that means we could use our SP membership to do that. So I want to thank you for listening to me. I'm sorry I was a lot of long and a lot of talking, but I hope that was beneficial. And I would now be happy to answer as many questions as you might have about anything. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Terry. Thank you so much. Please, can you stop sharing your screen? All right, thank you so much. Please, if you have any questions, go ahead and drop them in the chat box, or you can unmute to ask your questions. Do we have any questions in the chat box?
Good evening.
Joy, it looks like we have a couple of hands, like Ovi and Patrick both have their hands up.
Oh, okay. Please give me a minute so I can call out people. I think they are clapping.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a question.
Does anyone have any questions?
Yes, I have. Patrick.
All right, please state your name and then go ahead to ask your question.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Go ahead, Patrick.
Okay, good evening, everybody. My name is Patrick Ezinachi from Port Harcourt. The Students Affairs Co-Chairperson at the moment. Thank you, Mr. Terry, for this wonderful presentation, and also I'm so glad to meet you at NAIS. So straight to the point, my question is, what kept you going, volunteering for that long period of time before you got rewarded, recognized to assume the leadership position in SPE as a young professional till date? Thank you, sir.
Yeah, that's a good question. You know, I'm not going to, I would be, it's not like I set out to do the things I did in SPE. I've had people ask similar questions like, what, when did you decide you want to be president or run the Dallas section or whatever? It just wasn't something I was setting out to do. But the more I did, the more I enjoyed it. And just getting the personal satisfaction of people asking you to help and then helping and seeing something come and come to fruition, it just made me feel good. And I felt like I was making a difference in whether it was in a section meeting or in a person's life or in something else. And as I sat there, I would think, you know what, I'd love to help lead stuff. And so I didn't do these things to become a better leader. I didn't do these things to become a better writer. I just did them because I wanted to do them, and they provided me just with professional fulfillment. And then along the way, what was great was they ended up making me a better leader, and they ended up making me a better writer and a better speaker. That just came with it. But, you know, in the end, it was just because it felt beneficial to me.
Thank you, sir. I got that.
Okay, Patrick. We have two questions here. The first one is from Samuel, and Samuel asks how a mining engineer can transition to the oil and gas sector.
I mean, I think it's a good question. Look, we need petroleum engineers in our oil and gas sector, but really we need all engineers. And you know, I think as an engineer, you have some good base knowledge. And so then just, I think the question is, you know, maybe you get some training, enhance yourself by getting some oil and gas training. You can get that at SP, by the way. You know, you just, I think, leverage those engineering skills to get yourself into the oil and gas sector. Engineers are engineers. Obviously, a petroleum engineer is a specialized engineer, but then so is a mining engineer. And you know, you've got the basics, so then you just need to learn the details.
Samuel, are you satisfied with that answer? Well, I'll assume he is. The next question says, how can a chemical engineer benefit from SPE?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things. So first of all, I think anyone and any engineer can benefit from SPE when it comes to professional development. So, you know, just thinking about the volunteer side of things and attending meetings and learning things, you know, attending your section meetings or your student chapter meetings where you've got speakers that are giving you talking to you about technical issues, you can broaden your technical expertise that way. By going and participating in volunteer opportunities, you can take on all the things with the networking and all the things I talked about where you learn how to lead and organize and time management. So I think those are two main reasons that you can benefit from SPE. And then, of course, if you're trying to get a job in the oil and gas industry, I think it then also opens up you to a network of opportunities to potentially move into our industry. So I think that's the three things that you can get out of being a part of SPE.
Thank you so much, Mr. Terry. Then Adetola is asking if there's space for robotics in the oil and gas field. And what do you think I should dive in after? He asked what he should dive in after graduating. He should dive into after graduating as a mechanical engineer.
Right. Well, so first of all, yes, we use robotics in oil and gas. I can think of two examples. You know, we use robotics to go into to areas that we don't want people to go into that might be a harmful entry. So we send robots in to survey the situation and send back a video feed that says, okay, here's what's going on in this control room, things like that. So it's a safety thing. And then, of course, we also use remote operated vehicles when we're doing work at the bottom of the seafloor. I mean, we drill wells in a mile of water, and we do all of the work in the bottom of the ocean using remote operated vehicles. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for robotics, and that's just the two I can think of. And I'm sure we are going to continue to try to automate things, and we'll need robotics. And as far as what do I think you should dive in more after graduating as a mechanical engineer? Look, I think it just depends on what you want to do. I mean, a mechanical engineer can do things on the facility side. You can do things like you're talking about already on the robotics side. There's all kinds of rotating equipment in our facilities. Or you could try to become more of a petroleum engineer and do some more like drilling and subsurface. So I think there's a lot of opportunity.
Thank you so much. There are more questions. Okay, someone asks, Candy asks how Give me a minute. Ken is asking about chemical engineering and petroleum engineering, and which of them is more important in the industry today, and if they are the same thing, if you think they're the same thing.
Okay. Yeah, look, I mean, look, chemical engineering and petroleum engineering are not the same thing. They're very similar, okay? But they're not the same thing. The difference between the two is a chemical engineer is going to probably have a little bit more process and chemistry dive into, whereas a petroleum engineer is going to have more on subsurface, so drilling and completions and reservoir and fluid flow. So the fluid, the chemical engineer is going to be thinking about fluid flow on the surface. Petroleum engineers can be fluid flow in the subsurface. But they're both engineers. They both take a lot of heavy chemistry and physics and calculus. So, you can transform one into the other. And I think the industry is going to need, and by the way, the 24th century is a long way away. But I assume you mean 2024, but the industry is going to need all engineers. You're either going to need to be petroleum engineers, or you're going to get trained as a petroleum engineer as another engineer. But I really believe we're going to need engineers. It's going to be really important to us.
Thank you, Mr. Terry. Another question is, can you shed more light on the SPE mentoring program? And how did you handle transition into leadership roles without stepping on toes?
Those are two very different questions. So the e-mentoring program, you just sign up, you put in if you're going to be whether you're a mentor or mentee, you basically fill out a little profile of yourself. If you're a mentor, you're going to tell them, how many mentees you can handle, and kind of what your interest might be. If you're a mentee, you'll do this kind of the same thing. And then what happens is, you get as a mentee, you get to see all the mentors that say they're open to having a mentee. And then you pick the one you want to try to be a mentee, and then you basically send them a note, and there's a portal that does all this, right? You send them a note through the portal that says, I'd like you to be my mentor. And then they reply yes or no. And then at that point in time, you use the portal, and you're encouraged then to communicate either by email or Zoom or whatever. But then it just kind of becomes up to the mentor and the mentee to make those arrangements. And then how did I handle transition into leadership roles without stepping on others' toes? I assume you mean the fact that you got to be that leader and lead that. We're asked to be the leader instead of somebody else. I haven't really felt like that was a problem. Because most of the time you're either chosen by a supervisor or you're chosen by a committee or whatever. So, you didn't do the choosing. And I would say the key here is to have good relationships with everybody. And this kind of goes back to, being able to work together with others, so that when you get chosen, people look at you and say, yeah, you are well deserving, and they're happy to help. So I think that would be my thoughts.
Thank you again, Mr. Terry. Billy Keys, do you still want to ask your question? Are you still on the call? If you are, please unmute yourself and ask your question.
Good evening. My question was also relating to the mentorship, and he has already answered.
Okay, that's great. Another question by Kayode is, what are the elements to your technical papers? Oh my, more questions are pouring in.
Oh yeah, how did I get started? Yeah, that's a good question. So I mean, the elements of a technical paper, there are set things, an abstract, an introduction, things like that. But I think what you really are asking is, how do you get started? How do you write a paper? Look, most of the time, what you do is you look for a conference that would make sense for the paper you want to present and write. And then you pull together your thoughts and ideas. I mean, I think the hardest thing for a lot of people is what would I write about? And I guess what I always tell people is think about what you're doing. It's your job. What are, maybe you get to a stopping point, maybe you've finished completion of a well and you want to tell people how you did it, things like that. But those are the types of things I would look for. If you work for a service company, you might look for places where your products have been deployed. So there's options like that. Obviously, if you're in school, then maybe, I mean, look, as a student, you probably don't have a lot of opportunities for that. But I do think you can do some literature searches. Maybe you can do some research and compile a compendium of something regarding unconventional completions or things like that. So I think there's options like that. That's what I would kind of look for.
Thank you, Mr. Terry. Someone else asked, in this era of energy transition, using renewable energy as a case study, using solar and wind as a case study. As I try to read the questions, more questions keep coming. Let me find it. How can someone with electrical engineering background come into the energy space with technical knowledge?
Well, look, I have to be honest with you. I'm not in the renewable space, but I'm assuming you would get into that solar and wind in the same way you would get into the oil and gas industry, and that is you would want to reach out to those companies and look for companies that are doing solar and wind and find opportunities where they need engineers, electrical engineers. If you want to get into our space, electrical engineers are used for surface equipment and facilities. A lot of times electrical engineers are needed for service companies, people that make logging tools or geophysics companies or people that need that electrical engineering background. So those would be the two thoughts I have on that.
Okay, and the last question that we'll be taking for the session is from Opeyemi. The question is, what would you advise on how he or she can get topics that would interest SPE and he or she could write on?
Who's coming to you? Oga, who's that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know that I would be thinking so much of what topics do we need to key on of interest to SPE. I think I would think more about things that you know and that you understand. And I would write about things that you know and understand, or things that are of interest to you. So if you have an interest in a certain topic, then maybe you research that topic and write about that topic. So I would never try to do what somebody else thinks. I would try to do what you are, what you're excited about and passionate about, and write the paper and the topic on that.
All right, thank you so much again for your time, Mr. Terry. Just to reiterate on some of the things that I wrote down while you were speaking to us, you talked about the 5 important soft skills for personal development, which are writing, presenting, speaking, networking, and leading. And then you mentioned that emotions are in the eyes of the reader, so we ought to be careful while writing reports or emails. And then you said if you were to use a chat, make sure that your chat fills the entire page. Did I get that correctly?
Yeah, those are great.
Okay. You said practice is very important when it comes to speaking, and practice is not talking to yourself and just talking to yourself with your computer, but standing up, maybe speaking to your peers, or just getting up and doing the presentation from start to finish without stopping. That is what real practice is. And you said there's no substitution for collaboration when it comes to networking. Then you said never burn bridges with colleagues. You don't know where they might come in handy to your career. Always make sure that you leave a good impression with people about yourself, because once you lose a good reputation, it's very difficult to get it back. And then he said, even if you think you're not qualified or you cannot do it, say yes to the opportunity. And that is all. Those are the salient points that I took down. Of course, I think you said were very important. I took screenshots of all of your slides, but from everything I took down, these were the ones that stood out to me the most. You also mentioned mentorship as well. You said you can be a mentor as well as a mentee. The opportunities for mentorship, that is to be a mentor as well as to be a mentee as well. So thank you so much, Mr. Palish. Now we'll be going on to the photo session. So please, if you can, turn on your video. Let's see your beautiful faces so we can take a screenshot, please.
Hey, Joy, while everybody's doing this, if it would be helpful to you, I can give you this. I can send you this presentation so that you can share it with others. That's no problem.
You're wonderful. Thank you so much. We will reach out to get the presentation slides. Thank you so much.
Yep. I can just send it to Ovi. I'll just shoot it to Ovi.
Okay. All right. While we're still working on that, can we have Mr. Chimezie to give the closing remark? He's on the call. And if he's not, can we have Miss Ogaga, the YP co-chair, for the closing remark, please?
Yeah, good evening, everyone. And good evening, Joy. Okay, so I just want to once again thank Mr. Terry Palish for this presentation, this wonderful presentation. It was a good one. So I'm really sure that we've learned a lot today, and we have a lot to take home. So once again, thanks a lot, and I want to say, and also Chimezie gives his Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay.
Hi, Ogaga, we
okay,
can hear you. Please go ahead.
Yeah, okay. So and Chimezie gives his thanks as well for this presentation. And yeah, so we go and we go in our various workplaces, and yeah, so great presentation. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you again, Mr. Terry. Thank you so much for everything that you shared with us today. I'm very certain that it will come in handy in our careers and even for those of us that are still in school. So thank you so much. Please, if we're not asking for too much, please everyone stay for like 1 minute so we can take more screenshots, please. Just 1 minute and then we will leave. Thank you. While we're doing that, does anyone have any contributions? Okay.
Yeah, I could say something. If
please go ahead, Patrick.
Okay, so I want to thank Mr. Terry one last time, and for the benefit of everybody, it's a good one, most especially the students who've been asking all these questions. So what I'm going home tonight is don't burn a bridge, very important, and the leadership skill that he talked about, it's so wonderful. And one last thing is practice is important when it comes to speaking. So I just want to thank you all for making this presentation a good one for everybody. Thanks.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Palish. Thank you so much to everyone who participated. We would not have successfully carried out this program without you. Thank you so much. Yes. I would extend your regards to Mr. Diko. Thank you so much. All right. Thank you. Bye, everyone. Enjoy the rest
Take
of
care.
your evening.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah, okay, you can end the meeting now. So.